friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Lora Rolling and this is part 2 of the Santa Claus ornament tutorial. This is the Santa Claus ornament that we are making. It is so cute. I love it so much. And today we are going to be making the two beards triangle. If you haven't done part 1 yet, that's okay. You can do these out of order. I'll have that listed down below, and then when you're finished with this one, you can go back and do that one too. We just have a few materials to get ready, so let's get them listed and then we can get started. Let's go. So the beads that we're going to be using in today's project are all Miyuki Delicas. I have opaque dark cranberry, silver lined gold, and chalk white. I'm just going to call this red, gold, and white. We'll also need some beading thread and a beading needle. I like to use the Eslon Fire in the color Crystal. And I use the 4-pound. You can also use 6-pound beading thread if you'd like. I also like the size 10 beading needle, and you can use a size 12 if you prefer. Two implements that I use are the long nose pliers to hold on to my thread at the end, and then I cut my thread with scissors. And then at the very beginning, I'm going to show you how to end your tail using the fire method. So the only other thing that we're going to need, we won't be using this in today's video, but you'll want to get your hands on one to complete the project. This is a 2.36 inch plastic crafting ornament, and you can get them at your local hobby store. They generally come in a 12-pack, or if you just want to buy them individually, you can find them in my Etsy shop. So that's all we need to start the project. Let's thread our needle with 3 feet of thread, and then we can get started. So I have my needle threaded, and now I'm going to pick up my first 3 beads. All 3 of them are gold. I'm going to take these beads and pull them down to the end of my thread until I have about a 6-inch tail. Then I'm going to make a square knot. So I'm going to cross the thread over and then pull the tail through. And then I'm going to do that same thing, but on top. Cross the thread over and pull the tail through. Now I'm going to put my 2 fingers in the bottom loop, and I'm going to pull the top loop tight. Now I'm going to take my tail, and I'm not going to touch it to the flame. I'm just going to get it super close, and it melts the end into a little teeny knot like that. Then I'm going to take my 2 fingers, keeping them in the loop, and then I'm going to pull on the long part of the thread, twisting the loop until that little knot touches the long part of the thread. Now I'm going to take my thumbnail and I'm going to pull that knot down to the beads until it makes a little triangle of those 3 beads. And that completes row number 1. Now I'm going to pick up 2 gold beads, and I'm coming out of this bead right here. I'm going to sew down the bead right next to it. I'm going to try to make those beads sit right on top of the other 2 beads. Then I'm going to pick up another 2 gold beads. Coming out of this bead, I'm going to sew down the next bead, or through the next bead, making sure that those beads sit right on top of the beads under them. Now I'm going to pick up 2 more gold beads, and these 2 are the last 2 beads that I'm going to pick up for this row number 2. So I'm going to actually sew through the next bead and the bead below it. So I'm sewing through 2 beads. Each time we sew through 2 beads, we're going to call that stepping up, because it means that we've completed that row and we're ready to start the next row. So we've completed row number 2. Let's start row number 3 by picking up 2 gold beads. We're coming out of this bead, we're going to sew through this bead. Making sure that they sit right. Now let's pick up 1 gold bead, and we're coming out of this bead. If you'll notice, there's a bead that's set inwards and then there's a bead that's sticking out. We're going to skip the one that's set inwards. We're going to sew through the one that's sticking out. And that places that one bead we just added right next to its friend. Let's pick up 2 more gold beads. Coming out of this bead, we're going to sew through the next. Let's pick up 1 gold bead. Skipping the inner bead, we're going to sew through the outer bead, the one that's sticking out. I turn my work as I go to make it easier for me to sew my beads. Let's pick up 2 more gold beads and sew through the next. And then we're going to pick up 1 last gold bead in this row. We're going to skip the inner bead. We're going to sew through the next 2 beads. Stepping up, meaning we've completed row number 3. Let's start row number 4 by picking up 2 gold beads and sew through the next. Pick up 1 gold bead, sew through the sticking out bead. Pick up 1 white bead and sew through the sticking out bead. Turning my work. Let's pick up 2 gold beads and sew through the next. One gold bead and sew through the sticking out. 1 gold bead and sew through the sticking out. 2 gold beads and sew through the next. One white bead and 1 gold bead. This is the last bead in the row, so let's sew through 2 beads. And now we are ready to start row number 5. Pick up 2 gold beads 1 gold, 1 white, 1 white, and I'm turning my work. If you notice, we've got a little triangle, right? So each corner gets 2 beads. Let's pick up 1 white and 1 gold. One gold, 1 gold, 1 gold, at the corner we'll pick up 1 gold and 1 white. One white, 1 white, and 1 gold. Sewing through 2 beads, completing that row, and now we get to start row number 6. Pick up 2 gold beads, one gold, 1 gold, 1 white, 1 white, at the corner let's pick up 1 white and 1 gold. One gold, 1 gold, 1 gold, 1 gold, 1 gold, and 1 white. One white, 1 white, 1 gold, and our last bead in this row is 1 gold. Sew through 2 beads, and now we get to start row number 7. If you notice, I am going off of a pattern that you can find in my Etsy shop. You can download it and print it out. That way you have the pattern right in front of you. Or you can just follow along with this video. Whatever makes you happy, whatever makes it easiest for you. Okay, let's start row number 7 with 2 gold beads. One gold, 1 white, 1 white, 1 white, 1 white, at the corner, let's add 1 white and 1 gold. One gold, one gold, one gold, one gold, one gold, one gold and 1 white, one white, one white, one white, one white, and 1 gold. Let's sew through 2 beads and starting row number 8. Let's pick up 2 gold beads, one gold, one white, one white, one white, one white, one white, two gold, one gold, one gold, one gold, one gold, one gold, one gold, two gold beads, one white, one white, one white, one white, one white, and one gold. Sewing through two beads, stepping up to row number 9. Let's start with 2 gold beads. One gold, one gold, one white, one white, one white, one white, one white, at the corner, one white and one gold, one gold, one gold, one red, one gold, one red, one gold, one gold, one gold and one white, one white, one white, one white, one white, one white, one gold, and one gold. Sewing through 2 beads, and stepping up to row number 10. Let's start with 1 white and 1 gold. One gold, one gold, one white, one white, one white, one white, one white, one white, at the corner, one white and one gold. 1 gold, 1 gold, 1 red, 1 red, 1 red, 1 red, 1 gold, 1 gold, 'We're at the corner, 1 gold and 1 white, 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 1 gold, and the last bead in this row is 1 gold. Sewing through 2 beads, and now we're ready to start row number 11. But before I do that, if you'll notice, I have a little knot right here, so I'm just going to pull that knot out. Okay, it was bothering me, so let's start row number 11 with 2 gold beads, one gold, 1 gold, 1 white, 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 'At the corner, 1 white and 1 gold. One gold, 1 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 1 gold, 1 gold, 1 gold and 1 white, 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 1 gold, and 1 gold. Let's sew through 2 beads. And now we are ready to start row number 12. Let's start with 2 gold beads. 1 gold, 1 gold, 1 gold, 1 white, 1 white, 1 white, 1 white, 1 white, 1 white, 1 white. At the corner, 1 white and 1 gold, 1 gold, 1 gold, 1 gold, oh, I got a little knot again. Before that gets too crazy, I'm gonna just pull it out, use my thumbnail and straighten out my thread. And hopefully that knot doesn't come back again. 1 red, 1 red, 1 red, 1 red, 1 gold, 1 gold, 1 gold, 1 at the corner, 1 gold and 1 white, 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 1 gold, 1 gold, and the last bead in this row is 1 gold. Let's sew through 2 beads. Oh, I only made it through 1. Let's sew through the second one. And our triangle is looking very good. We are now going to add connection rows. Now, if this is the first triangle that you have made, then connection rows are what makes the triangles connect together. Like for instance, this was the part 1. We're doing part 2 right now. So part 1, and our connection rows are going to ensure that our triangles connect together, right? So to do that, some sides are going to have connection beads and then some are not. So in this case, our first row or our first side is not going to have beads, but our bottom and the other side is going to have beads. So the first thing we want to do is we want to cap the corner. So let's add 1 gold on the corner. And because I have a little dent in mine, you might not have a dent in yours. If it's totally flat, that's okay, as long as you can't see the thread in between the beads, right? But this side is much easier to sew on because it's got like a little bit of a cup to it, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just turn my triangle over, making it really easy to sew through these beads. So I'm going to just hide my thread, not picking up any beads. I'm just going to sew through all of these beads until I get to this bead right here. And so I'm going to show you how to do that. We're not picking up any beads. You can actually sew up any of these beads. You don't have to follow this line like I like to, as long as you're not skipping a bead or skipping a row, because you do not want to see your thread, right? So I figured this would be a good time for the question of the day. So the question of the day stems from my thinking of making ornaments in the middle of the year, right? Or in the beginning of the year in this case, because when I'm making this video, it's actually March. So, but I'm making a Santa Claus, right? So my question to you is, when do you start your Christmas shopping? Are you like a year or two beforehand? Do you just Christmas shop like throughout the year, or do you wait until maybe the holiday season starts, or are you one of those last minute shoppers? Let me know in the comments. I want to hear what you do. My standard is I pretty much start around right after Halloween. So when the holiday season starts, that's when I start Christmas shopping, and I'm never done by the time Christmas Eve happens. So I'm one of those that is like in the mall last minute shopping. Not that I'm not done, but I always think of something else that I want to get for someone, so I'm always there. Anyways, okay, so now we are coming out of this bead right here, which is the corner. So we're going to add another corner bead to cap it off. It's 1 gold. And that will make a point to this corner. So now we have a point on the bottom, we have a point on this side. Now we're going to add beads on, this is actually the bottom of the triangle. So we're going to add beads. The first bead we're going to add is a gold bead. So 1, and then 1 gold, one gold, one gold, one red, one red, one red, one gold, one gold, one gold, and one gold. Now we're at the corner. Let's add one gold bead to cap that corner off. And now we need to secure this bead before cutting our thread. So I'm going to sew up 6 beads without picking up any new ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And now I'm going to zigzag. So I'm coming out of this bead right here. I'm going to sew down the bead right next to it, making sure my thread doesn't get caught. And now I'm going to sew up the bead right next to that one. That's what I call zigzag. Oh, I picked the wrong bead. I'm going to sew back out of that bead. Okay. I'm going to sew up. Sorry. Okay, now I've hidden my thread. I can't see my thread. Now I'm going to sew up 2 more beads. 1, 2, and then I'm going to zigzag again. Down the next bead and up the bead next to that one. Now I am certain that this bead right here is secure. I'm just going to sew up 2 more beads and then we're going to cut our thread. So if we don't do those zigzags, then this bead is not secure and it can get loose. We don't want any of our beads to be loose. Okay, so now I'm ready to cut the thread. I'm going to hold on to the thread with my long nose pliers, and then I'm going to take my scissors and get as close to the bead as possible without cutting the bead, and I'm just going to cut that thread off. So this is a complete triangle. You finished it. It looks amazing. Great job. We only need 5 of these for the project, so go ahead and do this 4 more times, and I will see you in a second. That was so much fun. Thank you so much for being here with me today and beading along with me. Remember to like and subscribe and hit the bell button so you're notified when the next video comes out. I can't wait to see you there. Thanks for watching.